In the hallway, Svafa blew out her cheeks and bent over, hands on her knees. She felt like she'd been blindsided by a herd of reindeer. In the last few hours, she'd found a kraken, thought she'd found her father's killer, had her head cracked, and learned that maybe this wasn't the ghost who killed her father. It was a lot to take in, but she was determined to keep up a strong appearance for her crew. She stood and found Halvar looking down at her with concern in his eyes. Svafa wanted to look away, to curl up and hide, but she remembered a children's chant from her home planet. Love and live long, be brave and strong. We all need each other to join in our song. She needed her crew, especially now. She couldn't afford to shut them out. Sitting back against the wall, she let her hands fall to the grated steel walkway, running her knuckles along the rough serrated edges to ground herself. The ghost who killed my father, wasn't it a man? Halvar's eyes narrowed. Oh, the stories make him a man, but you were just in there. Obviously, the stories are wrong. Something strange is going on, Halvar. We need to get back to New Vinland. Halvar reached out to clasp her forearm and pull her upright. Of course, Captain.
Svafa stood on the bridge, hand hovering over his comm bracelet. He just changed his pronouns, but it didn't feel quite right as he remembered Anya's joke.
Maybe we'll even fall in love.
Ugh. Shaking his head, he looked up through the bow's massive viewport. But, of course, it was shuttered because of the battle and subsequent capture of the ghost ship. Anya's ship. Soren had some navigational charts open on the screen, and Svafa took a moment to review their planned route. They had intended to sail directly to Tenebro, where the best kraken processing facilities were, since theirs was the third kill in the last 5 years, and the ceremonies would be minor. But now, with a captured infamous pirate vessel as well, it seemed prudent to make for the administrative center on New Vinland. The route looks good, Soren. Svafa turned to go above deck, but something niggled in the back of his mind. It takes us a little closer to that cluster of Finra stars from a few years back, doesn't it? Soren spun his chair away from his control terminal so he could look up at Svafa.
It's the most direct route, but I could find another way if you're that concerned. I also thought we might want to stay a bit off the beaten path since we're towing that.
When he got to that, he jammed his thumb to port, obviously indicating the Gungnir's edge anchored there. Svafa eyed the chart for another minute. It was a few years ago. Surely Fenrir had moved on by now. Okay, Soren, adjust course. We'll take your route. With that, Svafa strode up the nearest stairway that would take him above deck. He needed to clear his head before making the necessary communication to the next of kin of his fallen sailors. He made his way forward to a spot on the ship he often stood to supervise his crew. It also offered an uninhibited view off the starboard bow, which, today, allowed him to not have to look Gungnir's edge. That definitely would not put him in the right headspace for the messages he had to send. Space was a vast expanse before him. He could see over the edge of the ship to the infinite blackness below, barely make out the flow of the aether carrying them along at speeds unimaginable to those ancient humans who had escaped Fenrir's jaws at the demise of Midgar. They would have called the aether dark matter, he mused. Funny how things circle around. Svafa stood there for a long time, lost in thought. When he finally roused himself, he found Ira standing a respectful distance away along the railing. He groaned out loud. Ira always found a way to be near him when he was feeling masculine, almost like she thought she could catch him at a good time to fall in love with a woman. He wasn't going to rule out falling in love with a woman being a part of his future, but he was certain it wouldn't be Ira. When she saw him looking in her direction, Ira smiled brightly and bounced toward him. Before she could speak, he put his hand up and cut her off. Please, Ira, I have to go speak to Eric, Levin, and Oira's families. Now is not a good time. Ira's face fell, but into a compassionate grimace. Oh, of course. That must be so hard. Be brave, Captain. They follow you willingly and loved you deeply. She reached out to touch his shoulder, but Svafa stepped around her, mumbled a thank you, and headed below to his quarters.